All right, let's dive into a really fascinating, kind of mind-bending question today. We're going to look at something called the slingshot argument, and it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. Are mathematical facts, well, are they even real?
Think about this for a second. 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's just true, right? It feels like it's woven into the very fabric of the universe. But what if it's not? What if that fact isn't some rock-solid thing out there in the world, but it's really just a powerful idea we've constructed in here, in our minds? That's the rabbit hole we're going down today.
Okay, so to even start to unpack this, we got to get on the same page about what we even mean when we say the word fact.
So philosophers have this term, a hard mathematical fact. Now, what the heck is that? Well, imagine it's like a physical object out in the world. It exists completely on its own, whether we're here to think about it or not. When we say 2 plus 2 equals 4, this hard fact is the thing out there in reality that our sentence is pointing to. It's the truth maker. It's what makes the statement objectively true.
And right here, this is the core of the whole problem. You've got two competing ideas. On one hand, you have these hard facts. They're like anchors, right? They hold our statements down in objective reality. But on the other hand, you have ideas or representations. These are more like blueprints that exist only in our minds. The big question is, which one of these is math, really?
Okay, so now that we've set the stage, let's bring in the troublemaker. It's an argument called the philosophical slingshot.
And yeah, I'm calling it a troublemaker for a reason. You should really think of it as a kind of philosophical weapon. Its whole purpose is to take aim at this idea that the world is full of all these separate individual facts and just blow it apart.
So how does this weapon actually work? Well, we're not going to get lost in all the formal logic, but here's the gist of it. You take two things you think are totally separate facts. Let's say fact A is Mars is red, and fact B is water is wet. You run them through the logic of the slingshot, and something really weird happens. It basically proves that fact A and fact B are the exact same fact. They all collapse into this one big single truth. The argument's conclusion is that there aren't millions of little facts, there's just one giant fact.
And this is its whole job, really. As the source paper puts it, its primary function is to supply reasons to reject various ontological theories of mathematical facts. In other words, it's a wrecking ball for the idea that the world is filled with lots of different individual hard facts. It's designed to make that entire worldview look logically impossible.
So, you can imagine, if you're a philosopher who really likes the idea of a world full of hard facts, this slingshot argument is a nightmare. But of course, they didn't just give up. They came up with some pretty clever ways to dodge it.
So how do you fight back against a weapon made of pure logic? Well, you can't attack the conclusion directly. You have to go after its foundations. You have to challenge the rules that it's playing by.
And it turns out there are two main ways to do this, two main escape routes. The first method is to reject something called the principle of extensionality. That's a fancy way of saying you reject the idea that you can just swap logically identical phrases in a sentence and have it still refer to the same fact. The second method rejects the principle of Wittgenstein, which basically insists that facts have to be super detailed and specific. Either way, you're essentially finding a gear in the slingshot's logical machine and jamming it so it can't work.
And here's the thing, they work. Both of these escape routes successfully stop the slingshot in its tracks. They save all our little individual facts from collapsing into one big blob. Phew, right? But there's a catch, a really big one. In escaping the slingshot, they run headfirst into a totally different and maybe even stranger problem. And both escape routes lead to the exact same weird place.
And this is the big twist of the whole story. It turns out saving facts from the slingshot comes with a serious price tag. The paper calls it the inescapable softening.
Because when you make those clever moves to block the argument, the very nature of the facts you just saved, it changes. They're not hard facts anymore. They become what are called soft mathematical facts. And what's a soft fact? It's not an anchor out in the world anymore. It's a mental blueprint. It's something that exists inside our heads, not outside.
And this is the knockout punch. According to the analysis, these newly saved soft facts no longer satisfy the semantic role of truth makers. What does that mean? It means they lost their superpower. The very thing we wanted a fact to do, to be the thing out there that makes our statements true, they can't do it anymore. In trying to save the facts, we broke the one thing that made them facts in the first place.
So, where does that leave us? Math obviously works.
It's incredibly reliable. But what if it works perfectly without any of those external truth makers we thought it needed to ground it in reality? What does that even mean?
Well, the implications are huge, really. It suggests that any logical system we build can only contain these soft facts, these mental constructs. It kind of pulls the rug out from under the old school idea that our mathematical language is just describing what's actually out there in the world. And just as a side note, this whole line of thinking comes from a pretty cool field called non-Phrygian logic, which is all about rethinking that simple picture of language just pointing at stuff.
So the bottom line seems to be this. Math is this incredibly powerful, unbelievably consistent system. We use it to build bridges and send rockets to space. But maybe, just maybe, its power doesn't come from being a perfect mirror of external, hard facts. Maybe its truth is something generated from within.
And that leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. If we follow this rabbit hole all the way down, and we accept that something as fundamental as 2 + 2 = 4 is a sophisticated construct of the mind, does that make it any less true? I mean, what does true even mean if it isn't tied to something solid out there in the world? That's a deep one to think about. Thanks for sticking with me.